They burn easily, a German panzer commander muttered on July 11, 1944, watching black smoke curl above a knocked-out American tank near St. Lo. The Sherman's turret lay twisted, its thin armor peeled open like a tin lid. Inside the Panzer IV, men laughed, short, confident bursts of sound muffled by steel and engine noise. Against the long-barreled 75mm and 88mm guns of Germany, the M4 Sherman seemed almost polite, too tall, too thin, too easy to kill.
That confidence had been earned. In the bocage country of Normandy, hedgerows thick as walls, lanes barely wider than a tank, German crews from units like the 2nd Panzer Division and Panzer Lehr had learned how to hunt Shermans at close range. They waited in shadows, engines cold, fingers resting lightly on firing levers. At 50 meters, sometimes less, they struck. The Sherman's armor cracked. Ammunition cooked off, hatches jammed, the smell of burning gasoline and scorched flesh seeped into the earth. American tankers knew it too. On June 13, 1944, near Villers-Bocage, British Cromwells and American Shermans had been ripped apart by a single Tiger commanded by Michael Whitman. Stories spread fast. By early July, U.S. crews of the 2nd Armored Division whispered dark jokes about being Ronson lighters, hit once, guaranteed to light. Inside the Sherman, fear had a sound. It was the high whine of the Continental engine under strain, the metallic rattle of spent shell casings rolling across the turret floor, the loader's breath coming too fast, fogging his goggles. They knew the numbers. A Sherman needed multiple hits to kill a Panther. A Panther needed one good shot to kill a Sherman. Every advance felt like gambling with loaded dice. German crews laughed because the math was on their side, at least on the ground. But the battlefield was changing, quietly at first, like distant thunder you felt before you heard. On July 25, 1944, at 09:38 in the morning, the sky above Normandy broke open. Operation Cobra began not with tanks, but with air. Over 1,500 heavy bombers, B-17 Flying Fortresses, and B-24 Liberators roared overhead, escorted by P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs. The ground shook as if struck by an earthquake. German positions west of St. Lo vanished under curtains of dust and fire. Even seasoned panzer crews, veterans of Kursk and Kharkov, pressed their hands over their helmets as concussions slammed through armor plating. Some bombs fell short. American infantry paid for it. But for the German armored units trapped in the kill zone, something far worse happened. Their sense of control dissolved. After the bombers came the fighters. The P-47 Thunderbolt was not graceful. It was massive, brutal, with a radial engine that sounded like an iron mill tearing itself apart. German tankers learned to recognize that sound instantly, the rising, circular growl as a Thunderbolt dove. 8 half-inch infantry machine guns opened up, stitching the earth with metal. Rockets screamed down, white smoke trailing, then detonated against engine decks, road wheels, ammunition trucks. On July 26th, near Marigny, elements of Panzer Lehr attempted to reposition under daylight. They never made it. Thunderbolts of the 366th Fighter Group hunted them along the roads. A Panther commander later described how the air attack felt. We were no longer hunters. We were animals running in the open. Shermans began to advance again, not alone, but with eyes in the sky. The laughter faded quickly. American tank commanders learned to wait. They held position, radios crackling, engines idling. When a German Panther revealed itself, firing, maneuvering, even just turning a turret, coordinates went out. Minutes later, sometimes seconds, the sky answered. The Sherman no longer had to win the duel, it only had to survive long enough to point.
On August 7, 1944, during Operation Lüttich, the German counteroffensive near Mortain, this new reality became undeniable. Forward air controllers with the U.S. 30th Infantry Division marked targets with smoke. Thunderbolts and typhoons descended in waves. German tanks clustered on narrow roads became burning wrecks. Survivors abandoned vehicles, ears ringing, uniforms soaked with sweat and fear. One SS tanker wrote later that the worst moment was not being hit, it was waiting, immobilized, knowing the planes would come back. Sherman crews saw it happen. From their periscopes, they watched Panthers erupt in fire without firing a shot. They smelled burning oil carried by the wind. The balance inside their chests shifted from dread to something like grim confidence. This did not mean the Sherman had become superior overnight. On August 10th, near Chambois, Shermans still died violently under accurate German fire. Crews still bailed out screaming, but the psychological center of gravity had moved. German tankers could no longer laugh at the Sherman because the fight was no longer just tank against tank, it was system against system. A captured Panzer IV crewman from the 12th SS later said something that stuck with American interrogators. The Sherman was not the problem, the planes were. For American crews, the Sherman became something else too. Not a death trap, but a tool that worked when combined with everything around it. Radios that functioned, logistics that replaced losses overnight, airmen who watched the same battlefield from above. On September 12, 1944, as U.S. armored columns crossed into Germany near Aachen, Shermans rolled past burned-out Panthers left where air attacks had caught them weeks earlier. Some German crews had painted kill rings on their barrels, records of earlier victories. The rings ended abruptly. The laughter was gone. What replaced it was silence, broken only by the distant drone of engines overhead, American engines, circling patiently, waiting for anything that dared to move. In the end, the Sherman did not win the war by being the best tank. It survived long enough for the sky to join the fight. And once the sky belonged to the Allies, steel on the ground, no matter how thick, was never enough again. This is an AI-generated functional story created for documentary-style educational and entertainment purposes. It is not a verbatim historical record, but is based on real events, dates, units, and wartime conditions of World War II.